Welcome all, wherever you may be or whenever you may be watching this. So 8 hours ago we made a live transmission talking about a little bit of self-inquiry. So I've spoken a little bit about self-inquiry and whatever doubts you may have about this, because going deeper and deeper into this subject, well, there must be a point for it. So the point will be your own questions, your own doubts. So I'll continue a little bit more with this subject, self-inquiry. And I've been talking about the body-mind complex and the illusion that the body-mind complex is. So there's this I'm not the body, I'm not the mind kind of a mantra that sometimes is repeated. But to begin this, to embrace or be embraced by this, some kind of maturity must be there, as I've spoken earlier. The heart must be filled with love for God, with the reverence which is needed, or else it will just dry the life out of your process and becomes nothing. So before we go to complex explorations, we'll start by the basics. And the basics is the most important of all. So usually these days, these things are presented in a way, in a very, seem to be an easy way. Anybody can practice. That's fun because with this mindset, you avoid any strains or difficulties, and whatever is suitable to you, you classify as existent or non-existent, or else classify it as non-existent, or don't classify it, don't touch it, don't speak about it, don't question it. So whatever is precious, it's not questioned. Whatever is disturbing in a sense, it is questioned as for its reality. So to start with this, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So if I'm not the body, the life of the body, it's not real. So these structures that supposedly are to take care of the body and all of this, they are not a need. So these fears which are connected to these investments, they must be not conquered, maybe it's not the, but you need to gain some distance towards this. So this is where the things start to become alive. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So the life of this character, which is the body-mind complex, it is not real. It is not needed. So all these worries about this, they have to be put aside. Put aside. And by putting it aside, difficulties will come, pain will come intensely, and this is where you remain firm. This is not me, I'm not this. So when you go to this level of practice, social life, what is the point of a social life? What is the point of a future, of safety, of all these things? Because they are not real. So how can your time be spent feeding these things? And as people move around in these spiritual environments, the need to belong to a place, to a sangha, the need to mingle, the need for a relationship, the need for this, and inside this new life, this new spiritual life, oh, I'm not the body, oh, I'm not the mind. When some pain comes, when some difficulty arises, which difficulty? The difficulty is connected to the frustration in the realization of certain desires, certain mundane desires. This is where the practice becomes more intense. So this is child's play. child's play. If your boat is going down the river and there's a big, huge waterfall, and your boat is going to fall down the waterfall, what is the difference in going to disappear, to be destroyed in that waterfall, with your eyes open or with your eyes closed? So sometimes people come with questions about their practice, that they observe what is happening. They are just there observing. What purpose does that accomplish? What is the purpose of that if it's not real? If I'm not the body and not the mind? So what is the purpose of observing that which is around the body or that which is in the mind? It is distraction. Every observation, either you observe the thoughts or a meditation technique, whatever is connected to observation. You see, that which is observed is not the important, but this observation will lead you somewhere, some point, to the visualization, maybe. It is not the best word, but to the scene that there's something here which is observing. And when this is possible to see, and this is another way of saying that silence, that presence, that identity, which I mentioned previously in the other live stream, then you let go of the objects that are being observed and you start observing the observer. And that means remaining there at that source, at that silence. If you're just observing whatever seems to be around you, whatever is happening in daily life, it makes no difference as if you go distracted. It's just different circumstances, but nothing different whatsoever. So eventually, if I'm holding on to, I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, and this is practical experience, because everyone says, this is my body, and this is my mind, and these are my emotions, and this is my soul, and this is my God, and this is mine, it is all mine. And if it's all mine, it's not me, it is mine. So I'm different from all of this, and everything is mine. So all these phenomena, they are useless, and they are there to tell you that they don't interest. It is that in there which is observing them that matters. But letting go of these things when you're honestly trying to move towards freedom, deepening your practices, all these things, you will see that you are a prisoner that it will be very difficult to break that prison, because you may know that it is not real, but that's just the beginning. It has to be seen. And to see this, you will have to go through the sacrifices, you will have to go with faith, and you have to pay to see and take over the consequences. So when you stop investing in a relationship or in a job to secure the future, fear will arise. Fear inside of you or fear around you. People will start coming to you with their own fears. It's quite a simple equation. You see, everybody is defending their own existence, their own world. And as someone is doing something which goes against that, he is endangering the other's existent reality. So they will defend it. So if you're doing something to push through your fears, others which are that have the same fears that you have will start screaming in your ears. And this will only be important to you as long as these fears are there inside of you. When they are not, when you are certain of what you're doing, other people's opinions, they will not bother you. So this being alone is a need. And the best thing is not to share your your spiritual experiences with no one except with guidance. You see, the one who is guiding you, with that one you should speak. If it is inner guidance, like I said before, not your feelings or whatever, but present, direct, inner guidance. No need to speak because nothing is required to be said. But that one is more difficult. But without going through these difficulties, without questioning your beliefs, so I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I will not feed this any longer. You will see, one, fears will start arising, insecurities, deep pain, sometimes deafening suffering, unbearable suffering. And then you must give in a little bit. But by giving in, give in consciously. A little bit, not too much. Knowing that you are giving in, don't give excuses. Because if you give excuses and you believe in your excuses, then you're lost. If you have to give in knowing that you are giving in, and continue to work until you reach the point where you don't need to give in anymore. So honesty is a very important factor in practice. So silence, what is deemed as real silence, is the freedom, maybe just a small freedom yet, but the freedom of not having to comply with the inner demands or outer demands. It's inner because there is no outer demands. Outside of you, there's always a lot of demands. Some you listen, others you don't. So it is about what you deem important and not about the demands in themselves. So when you have the freedom not to comply, then you have silence. And in this silence, you can remain longer and longer and longer at the source, in that silence. And that silence has a powerful effect, dissolving those structures, those deep-seated structures that make you give importance to what is called life. So if you're just moving around, doing your spiritual life with all the characteristics that were before, well, nothing has changed. And for some, these spiritual environments, they are a big invitation because, well, spiritual-minded people usually they are by far more nice, more understanding, more compassionate, and more peaceful, peaceful. Except, except when real work begins. And when real work begins, they are by far the most insane people. And it's a good thing because all the craziness starts coming up instead of being hidden inside, and the same old, it's going. You see, when you start intensely working, all your monkeys start coming out of the cage, and they don't come out in a nice way. So this is why being alone, spending time alone, doing practices alone, not mingling with too much people is a must to avoid um, unnecessary turmoils, unnecessary misunderstandings, confusions, and all of this. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So in that sense, I want nothing else from this world apart from freedom. And this is my only goal, my only goal. Having forgotten about everything outside, having forgotten about all these dreams, these inner dreams that make life interesting, that make life important, then I sit quiet in an upright position and I close my eyes to the outer world and I close my eyes to the inner world also, and I stay in that silence. But if your mind is too gross, if you haven't made any sacrifices, if you cannot endure pain, difficulties, discomfort, without your mind being too agitated, then you will not even know what this place, this silence is. As you say, who am I? Instead of your mind, it still moves to that place, but then a lot of voices will come in the middle and you will not know which is which. And even if you did, it's like waiting for a bus that will never come. You'd listen of nothing, you don't listen in bus approaching, just dust and wind. As you've gone through these things and these concepts, I'm not the mind starts becoming alive, then it is possible to remain longer and longer and longer at the source. And by remaining there, all the craziness, all the needs, the suffering will start emerging intensely, like washing away, washing away. If you do something to stop these sensations, this suffering, then you're back in a washing machine and you're back to normal. As you remain silent, in silence, in that place, then it starts washing away, washing away, washing away, emptying it all, emptying it all. Any questions you may have about this, you can send. So my advice to you all is for you to make a little bit of investigation. And I'm not talking about self-inquiry right now. It's probably a more important investigation. Forget about these new books, commentaries of all these beautiful, elaborated games of words, of poetry, of... Go back to the old scriptures. Try to understand how was the life of the seeker of truth. How was the spiritual path back then? Read the stories of the saints for you to get an understanding of what the path is. And look at your own life then. And let's see if you understand something. You see, the majority of you out there, you have enormous potential, but you have been deceiving yourselves. Yourselves, because deep down in the seekers of truth, I'm just talking to seekers of truth, deep down you know that these things are not right. But you're using what you see as an excuse to participate, to get these other things, these mundane desires satisfied with an excuse. But understand that the regret that comes from this is enormous if you're a seeker of truth. If not, nothing to say. But if you go to the old days, you will understand a lot of things, a lot of things. Nothing better than a dead master so that you can interpret the teachings at your own will. This is being done all the time, and it may be logical sometimes. But remember, logic, your logic, is different from the logic of others. So what does this mean? It means that your logic is not absolute, it is relative. Relative to what you call your reality now. And this changes. So this is useless. Go back, get the stories, the Puranas, all these ancient tales, and you will see how the life of the seeker of truth was. And the stories are there because there were those who were doing the path, and there were others that were observing what they were doing. So those who were not in a place of such an intense quest could see these behaviors of these seekers of truth that they could not understand, and all this got registered. They could not understand at that point, but when their own calling would come, they would have a reference, a reference. And this is how it is continued. So your path is not just your own. Everybody in this world is teaching something, and everybody is learning something. Seekers of truth, they look at other seekers of truth to see more or less how is the path done, what to do. So these days, the majority of seekers of truth, seekers, let's call it this way, there's not much different from a mundane person. Only the circumstances, the language, the behavior, maybe the clothes, just this, but is the same goals, the same things. Nothing is that much of a difference. In a form, maybe, but not in the content. So doing this exercise of going to the past and see how it was, It is very important. See, because all of these interpretations, they are very new. They are very new. And for a teaching to show that it is good, valuable, it has to endure time. And by now, a few decades already passed. By now, some of you are starting to realize what a bunch of nothing that all these things are. And if you're in this position, I imagine that if a lot of years have passed and you have been investing apparently in this thing but taking care of little life, it will be hard for you to admit what has been happening. Even so, the sooner you realize, the better, because it is always time to sincerely start the path. It is always time. But make no mistakes. If you have been avoiding the narrow path, those fears, those difficulties that were connected, that made you devoid, these things will be there and will be there stronger. So it will be even more difficult. But still possible, in theory, of course. Okay. So I have a question here. Hello, I would like to ask about the optimal conditions for meditation at home, place, etc. Thank you very much. So the optimal conditions for meditation at home. Home is meditation. Home is your meditations where you build. So the meditation is your home. It's different. But okay, let's go to the practical places. Maybe this is not the best time because we're talking about self-inquiry, so all this is like, but okay. So the optimal conditions for meditation. First, lifestyle. So the lifestyle must be put in a way that mundane goals are absent. So your home has to become ashram-like, you see? So diet, people that are around you, things that you are seeing, touching, being, all of this has to be taken care of. So first, to begin with, you choose a place in your house where nobody goes. This is preferable. Or then you use what you can. But the same place, the same time, the same technique, repetition, 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 and increasing, increasing, increasing. Before the practice of meditation, there must be a reminder of what you're going to do. And what you're going to do is to touch your forehead at the feet of the divine. You see? So in the beginning, a prayer, a heartfelt prayer, thanking the opportunity, the blessing, to have this notion, this inner desire for liberation, because this is a blessing in itself. Asking for guidance, thanking guidance if it is present, or praying for it to come. Then the practice. For a beginner, 1 hour, and then you have to move to 1 hour and a half, 2 hours, and so beyond. So as you stay in the same room doing the practice there, the vibrations will increase, And this will help you each time you sit to go deeper and deeper and deeper in your practice. It has to be taken care of as a temple. A temple. But meditation becomes home. And as you continue to anchor in meditation, because sitting is very important, in the right posture, with the right attitude, for the right time. And then as you move from this sitting posture to opening your eyes and moving around, the body will move around, the mind remains still and continues the practice. Either it is a technique or it is silence. It continues the practice. For beginners, and for someone who is asking the optimal conditions for meditation at home, well, probably home is not the most suitable place for meditation, but it will have to transform. Make no mistakes about it. If you're seriously trying to meditate, your environment will be affected and it will have to change eventually. You will have to change. Everything will have to change. Because if you're doing silence in the middle of that, your environment, environment will start coming against your practice, starting to disturb your practice. And make no mistakes, you may adapt yourself to the routines present in the house, to the lifestyle of others. You may even do this, and this is very good for you. To adapt, to stop to try to make things your way. This is very good. But that war will intensify and eventually changes will have to come. But for beginners, a place where no one comes, a clean place that gets sunshine during the day, to open the place to get fresh air, and then you meditate at the same hour, especially from 2 to 6 in the morning, in the same position, the same place, every day, every single day, and increasing. If you have more questions about this, well, elaborate a little bit more, then I can answer more specifically. So I'll wait a little bit. If there are no questions about this, we'll end this transmission. But before disconnecting and going back a little bit to the main subject of today, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. You see, from time to time, everyday preferably, you have to look at what you're doing with an honest look, with the eyes of someone who really wants to see, and question, what are you doing? And if you question this correctly, you will start to see the way your mind is using these concepts to justify certain things, and that it is twisting this I'm not the body, I'm not the mind into specific situations, maintaining others and in mundane investments without a check. If you see this, and I'm sure you will, if you want to see, do something about it. If you cannot do all at once, do what you can. Persist in that, and something else more will be possible after this. Okay, till next time.